Welcome back to our podcast, XTraw AI. And today we are going to discuss the topic of insurance agency or insurance agency operating system for the AI era. This insurance is a very important topic. And I have with me the head of AI enablement at ALKEME Insurance. Welcome on board, Ryan.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here. Happy Friday. Happy Friday.
Yeah, almost end of the week. So before we get into the conversation, I just want to give a quick background about Ryan. So we are today at a very practical corner of enterprise AI for insurance agency world. So my guest here, Ryan Deed, he's the head of AI and enablement at Alchemy Insurance. He brings a rare combination of insurance agency experience, data strategy, operational understanding, and hands-on AI enablement. He has spent quite a few years working with agencies on the realities of the data, the technology adoption, workflow bottlenecks, and also the cultural change needed to make innovation actually work. So these are some of the things. So before we get into the actual podcast conversation, Ryan, before getting into the topic, I would like to get your personal story or a professional story, the backstory about how you ended up getting here where you are.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I was lucky when I was young and beautiful, long ago, long ago. Um, I started with an insurance agency in 2001. I was actually working at a Tropicana Orange Juice before that. I was a system administrator. I didn't get a promotion. I got really mad. I went home and I started looking for jobs. And there was a job in Florida for an insurance agency that was about 8 million in revenue called Lanier Upshaw. I knew nothing about anything at that point in time, but I was like, I want that job. I'd had some military experience in my background. The hiring manager there had some military experience, and he was like, "Yeah, come on, let's go." And so I started there, and very rapidly, the system that we were using it was Sajita, which is a large system on the insurance agency side. They wanted to start pulling data and doing advanced reports, and I hadn't done any of that, but that was kind of like year one when I got there. It was kind of what they wanted me to do, and so that kicked off a career in kind of data wrangling and data understanding and data fallacies, I would think, right? And data myths and trying to how do you drive action truly with information and how do you create behavioral change with information? And it's much harder than you think. I think initially when you're young, when you're early in the game, you're like, I'm going to create a graph. That graph is going to do stuff and people are going to change their lives on this graph. And that's just not the way it works, right? And so after there, I was there 10 years. Then I went to another insurance agency that was larger in Nashville, doing similar work. By that time, I'd picked up Python as a programming language, done a lot of like kludgy kind of quick build stuff, running larger departments, but really working with the users on adoption. Like all the tools that we have and we bring to you, and you only use a quarter of them. Like, what's the issue? How do we do better? And to spend a lot of time on the psychological nature of the user and what do we do in a technological world where we as technicians are like, you said you had a problem. We solved your problem, but you don't use it. Like, why? What's the issue? And so then I went to a group called Assurex. They were a large insurance agency conglomerate where I was the head of data there. And that was really how do we bring together big ass agencies and get a bunch of data and then do something with that for the carriers. I was there for 3 years and then I ended up at Enable. And Enable is a startup that does data aggregation and love that job. But then I got the opportunity 4 years later to work at Alkeme. And I met Alkeme's CEO, Curtis, and their CRO, Troy. And when I left Enable, I was looking for an agency that was large, that had resources, and that was not afraid to experiment.
Mhm.
And they kind of fit that bill. And I joined them about 16 months ago, 15 months ago, and we've been building ever since. And so it's been a fun ride, and very, very excited to be with, risk tolerance is a big thing in insurance agencies, and Alchemy is risk tolerant as it comes to new things, and so that was it's been a really fun time. Very busy but very fun time.
Great, great. That's a great background and great backstory. Ryan. I think before we get into the conversation, I know you have had this practical voice when it comes to AI, right? I keep saying that, okay, focus is not on AI as a shiny tool, but how it is solving some real workflow challenges or operational problems. How did you first start seeing AI as something that can genuinely change how these agencies work in the context of insurance, right? I think because this is a industry which has been very core, whether it is for the business purposes or personal purposes or many of these.
So I mean, because I was a programmer, so when I was at Crichton, I used Slack heavily, and I built
Mhm.
a couple of Slack bots that that's how our team would integrate. That's how they would ask questions, and of course, that was all NLP, right? So
Mhm.
everything was like, hey, you're doing if-then statements, you're using like crazy like TensorFlow, different things to try to figure out like what intention was, right? So, when AI came up, the first thing that I thought about it was like, how much easier would my life have been had I had that utility back then? And then oftentimes in the data world, you're constantly taking data from this format to that format, right? So when ChatGPT came out initially, that was my first thought. I was like, okay, cool. Now I have a universal translator. So can I put in a schema, a JSONic schema, and then can I send anything to ChatGPT and have it take what it can out of that and put it into a standardized JSONic schema? So I kind of took both of those two kind of experiments, right? Like decision tree, NLP kind of stuff that now becomes super easy with AI, especially as they release the APIs, right? Initially, ChatGPT came out, you had the interface, you were working with it, everybody's blown away, like, oh my God. But then the APIs came out that let you attack discrete kind of pieces of work and decision matrix in the workflow. Because I think, it's one thing to say, hey, here's a chat interface, go and find value in that. That's
Mhm.
going to resonate with 5%, 10% of users, right? Where
Mhm.
if you say, hey, your current state is you do X, Y, and Z, and it takes you 12 minutes, your future state is you do X and it saves you, and you get the same result. Here's the verified comparable, and it took you 30 seconds, and it's better work. So our philosophy is how do we bake it in to the user's workflow where they're not having to say, ooh, I'm going to go use AI for this, right? How do you, and so most of the products that we've developed have AI wrapped inside of them that are naturally being leveraged by the user. Because again, one of the biggest things I fought with in my life as a technologist has been building cool things that nobody uses, right? Like you build cool stuff that nobody uses. And so I'm like, okay, well, everybody does activities in the system this way. So can we wrap AI around that and have it transparent to them? And can we, when we're prospecting, can we have AI go out and grab some information about that prospect and deliver it that way? And can we bake that into their flows so they get the result of it without them having to go to an interface and do that? And then we use AI extremely heavily for our development here at ALKEME. I mean, it's impressive. When I stand back and look at what we've built over the last year,
Mhm.
like it would have literally taken us 4 or 5 years to do the old way. We wouldn't have been able to accomplish it that way. And so I'm still learning for sure. I don't know that anybody has that question knocked. But I feel like be close to the work, be tangible and valuable. Like, and make sure you can show that value to the user. User has to feel safe. They have to feel like they can make some mistakes and not get screwed over, or they'll never innovate and they'll never change. And so, how do you create a culture of safety and security for those users as well? So, I wish it was like a very easy, like just check this box and it all work, but it's not. It's been a learning experience and continue to learn as we walk down that path.
Right, right. So I know this is, yeah, I think you've been modest saying that you're still learning. Of course, many of us are still learning in this field of AI. A lot of things are happening at a very fast pace. Uh, I know with insurance agency, why do you think insurance agency is business ready for practical adoption now at the current moment? Because
I don't know that they are. I mean,
Mhm.
I think that we have plenty of opportunity to identify. So I've always had this thing called soul sucking task list. I think you
Mhm.
have, In my world, I want that user to tell me what is the high volume, low value tasks that they're doing, right? And I keep a soul sucking task list that we attack. Now, if we use AI to attack it, great. If we use Python to attack it, great. Like today, a lot of times the using AI to do something super fast is easier to bring in and show a result with, right? But I don't know that anybody's out there saying, all right, we are totally 100% ready for this. And I don't think the technology, I mean, we are 1 minute in into an infinite game. That's what I keep thinking about, right? Like
Hmm.
all the solution providers that are out there saying, I'm going to show you the light, I'm going to show you the way through this. They don't know any better than we know. They don't know.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, a model comes out that outmodes half the stuff that they built. Like, who knows? Like, so I'm very, you got to keep an open mind. You got to listen to individuals, but everybody and their brother out there is talking about how they know AI the best. I don't know AI the best. I know how to use it in our office. I know what will work. I have a team of people that are looking around on how to leverage it, but we don't know what the end state is. We have assumptions, and so I don't know. I think we can attack problems that create friction in the organization, and part of that toolkit can be AI. Sometimes the solution is not AI. You may build the solution using AI to build the code faster, but unless there's a decision support mechanism inside that you can't determine algorithmically,
Yeah.
then and so if you had a variable list of words that were 10,000 long and AI could narrow that down really quickly, that might be a good spot to do a quick GPT call, compare the two. What's the intention here, right? Boom, boom, boom. But I think oftentimes we pitch AI from a perspective of like, oh, well, but you could just use Excel for that. And we talk about our team with all the time, like, don't build complex solutions for simple problems. Like, if you bring to an AI team today, like, I need to keep this door open. Oh, they are going to build you this badass agent that does all this stuff. I'm going to use a door stopper, right? Same impact. Y'all did a whole lot of stuff, and you could say it's AI, and I'm just like, yeah, my door stopper. But the door stopper works just as well. And so you try to balance that out with the hype because some of the pressure that comes from our leadership, obviously, right? Because they want to be forward thinking. Is like, hey, they did this thing over there. That's really neat. And you're like, yes, that is super cool. Do you want us to do that? We can do that, and it's trying to help them figure out what's real and what's kind of hype. But again, I'm just everybody's trying to navigate this together, and that's the thing. It's I think the problem is when people say I know what's going to happen. Nobody knows what the hell's going to happen. You know?
Beautiful. I think I love the way you have put it because when I started this podcast 4 5 years back, the whole idea was like trying to understand the problems out there. And these used to be my questions initially, right? What is the problem that you're trying to solve? Do we even need AI? Because in some scenarios, it can be a normal rule-based mechanism could solve the problem. And then later on, I think, yeah, people came up with this generative AI. It can generate this text. But yeah, like you mentioned, in some scenarios, a AI tool can help you get there, but the actual solution might be much simpler. And then in that way, I think that is where I love the way you put it because now you don't want to use a large LLM to solve a small little math problem. And this is where you use ton of resources. And now we are running through all this energy and infrastructure and data and all these issues. But yeah, good. I think let me get into this aspect of the agencies, right? I think I know AI can help agencies create more capacity without uh, simply adding more headcount, right? I think do you agree with that, and how you guys are trying to do that?
I do. I mean, I agree with that to some extent. I agree that if you have well-groomed processes and defined roles and tasks that everybody understands how they flow and it's and you have standardized outputs that you can compare, then yes, you can definitely use a and there's different places that it plugs in. I mean, some places it can be really powerful, right?
Mhm.
And if you take like all right, if we're trying to quote workers' comp automatically and we're looking through a confluence of factors that may make it more acceptable for us to send that specific risk to get quoted, right? We would bring up the data markers. We'd kind of say, hey, this is the decision criteria that we're trying to leverage. We have a nebulous answer on this one. We're going to out that to a decision support AI. What do you think? Give us the green or the red. And now we're actually having like AI check AI's work, right? Like we've built technology called the judge that is judging every answer that the LLM gives. It pulls in the actual source documentation. It goes and finds the reference. It then grades the LLM's answer for that and gives a percentage of accuracy, right? So that way we can automate question and answering as we try to tighten up and limit hallucinations. I mean, but I think that I think it's like you said, in an agency, it's if I was a small agency of 10 people and everybody did things exactly the same, yeah, man, I can probably drop some stuff in there tomorrow. I can lift certificates off, I can do a bunch of different things. In a large organization where you have disparate workflows and there's multiple individuals and the outcomes are different each time, it's much more human, where you have to do a lot more human process control work to get that process tightened up so you have a defined output and you know what it should be happening, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll tell you, I mean, a project that came up yesterday. So we're working with First Finance to do premium financing.
Mm-hmm.
And what we want to do is we want to automate the ability to renewals coming up for in 30 days. We want to be able to pull that information out, go to First API, put in the information, and then drop that into the email, attach that into Epic. So when the account manager submits the renewal, right, they can be like, "Hey, here's our premium finance agreement." Well, we have 50,000 accounts that qualify for that, but when we went and looked through the workflow and we determined, okay, how many account managers are putting in the quote activity and attaching the quote is about 10% of the stuff that we would need to do. So, and so my team's like, look, we can handle all the exceptions. And I'm like, no, we're not doing that. You're not going to go and spend 4 weeks creating every exception path to go be able to figure this out. We're going to hold the golden path true. And we're going to say, if you want to take advantage of this, you've got to go the golden path on the process side, right? Like, and that was very interesting to the team because they're like, well, we need to solve the problem. We do, but at the same point, the more we variabilize, the more the output becomes a nebulous, and we're not actually helping the humans get ready for an agentic future, which is relatively tight, process control stuff. And so I think that depends strategically on where you want to apply it. Is it on efficiency building and on sludge removal? That means you're going to have good process control. Most people aren't there yet, so maybe you hyper target very specific areas. Is it on, new generation of leads or leads augmentation? Super easy to do that, right? Like you can do all kinds of stuff there. And is it on helping you build solutions? It's really about like where are you mature at a maturity level for your process control, and that's where you get to determine where AI comes in and plugs in, I think, if that
So,
answers your
so
question.
taking that further, where do you see the biggest bottlenecks are there today for agencies? Like, and how do you think?
Process control. I mean, when you have three people in a team of four, and each one of those individuals has a different process to, and this is not related to even ALKEME. This I was
Right.
at my other every agency I've ever worked at. This is how it's been. So I have a habitational unit that's dealing with a bunch of real estate companies. I've had three account managers. One has uh, a 16 step process for a renewal. Somebody else has a 64-step process for a renewal, and the other person has a 27. And they're all in the middle of, they're all in the same department. Agentic's not going to help with any of that, right? Like that is, so then what you have to do is, hey guys, you guys choose which is the process that you want to use. And then 7 weeks later, after they come out of battle with each other as humans, right, to figure out what that consensus is, the consensus building takes a lot longer time. And oftentimes people don't want to do it. Like I do it my way. And if there's not leadership that's pushing down, you don't ever get there. So I truly believe consensus upon workflow for the outcomes that you want and having folks determine that is what holds most folks back from using agentic kind of AI. Um, and then obviously I'm very nervous about using it for any kind of like policy from the standpoint of recommending coverages or anything like that. Like we're staying away from that completely at this point in time, until we tighten stuff up.
But that's a great point that you have mentioned, right? I think about process control. I think process control, I think, of course, you're talking in the context of insurance agencies. Of course, in many other industries have these problems, but insurance agencies, I think, like you mentioned, these account managers, they try to sell insurances in different ways to different people or different organizations. So that is the reason you have these process control related problems. But do you think Or let me put it this way, how do you think data and analytics can play a bigger role in helping them get to a consensus rather than, I'm not even using the term AI here because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
one more level
That's
deeper,
what we
right?
did. I mean, so I built a tool that goes into our AMS, pulls out the workflow because that was the question, right? Is like, hey, Ryan, we need to do agentic stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let me show you what our renewal process looks like. So you go in, you pull a renewal process, and it shows the 87 variations. And then out of the 87 variations, which one has the most saturation over the last 2 months, right? Like, and so now you've used data to illustrate at least the problem, right? Okay, we have a golden path that we believe is the right path. So 15% of our users are leveraging that path, right? Other users are doing similar steps and similar things, but they're not following the exact one. So in that case, and that's what we're doing today a lot is using data and our understanding of data to illustrate where those breakdowns are to then get that. Like today, I rolled out an application to a team that's here are the activities that we have in Epic. You tell me which one's a human and which one's automated. If it's a human, then you tell me the complexity and you tell me if it is compliant to our workflow, right? Because then I can audit when other people are doing it. And then when I'm doing like I can look at friction points. So a lot of times you know that AI is out there, but you're having to shore up a bunch of stuff before you can really apply it to that. And I mean, I think that's the using data in that way is something we do a ton, right? To pull, but you have to understand the systems and you have to, there's a bunch of nuances into that as well. But I really enjoy that work because when you can show somebody like, hey, this is the golden path workflow and you're over here, they understand it. They're like, okay, so this is going to keep me out of E&O problems, and I see why you have this step and that step. And then tomorrow, if they don't follow it, I'm going to email you something to say, hey, you had 7 non-compliant things, right? Like in a softer way. But I think that's a lot of the stuff that we're doing today is prepping us for our longer term future.
Beautiful. I know we've addressed some of these things. We've understood what are the problems we are facing and how these things are happening in the insurance agency world. I would like to get a bit more now into the ALKEME insurance itself. Like, could you give a maybe high level overview about what exactly ALKEME does and
Yeah,
how do you
yeah, 100%. I mean,
solve some of these problems?
well, I think Alchemy first. I mean, they're a tech forward, really interested in being the insurance agency partner of the future. And when I say that, what I believe fundamentally with AI is that we're able to craft a better customer experience that is customized based on the data markers that we have for that client than we were before AI. Right. So now I can know 16 data elements at scale of every one of our clients and make determinations on that and communicate with them in a way that's leveraging those. Right. Hey, a hailstorm in Minnesota happened yesterday or it's going to happen tomorrow. Let's send this out to the 15 clients that we have in the county that we see that hailstorm's coming in. Let's make sure they have their carrier numbers. Let's make sure they have all this stuff ready in case they take a loss, right? Hey, we're proactively notifying you. We've seen a hailstorm coming over. Here's the stuff that you have. Again, you could do that without AI, but AI makes the massaging of bad data very, very easy, right? Because if you don't have great data or if you don't have pristine data, I would say, you have to make certain assumptions.
Mhm.
And code assumptions are always kind of black or white, right? Where you can have a lot of gray when you bring in ChatGPT or whatever flavor of AI you're using. Um, I think so Alchemy is a large insurance agency that's nationwide. We
Mhm.
provide employee benefits, retirement, commercial, personal lines. We have more commercial than anything else from a revenue standpoint. And we're constantly acquiring new agencies that do cool things, right? And have really figured out a way to be successful. And then they're looking for a partner in the next step. And so, um, for us, we feel like how do we create and craft that customer experience and then bring very specific tools to that client section that others may not have? Like, can we help you understand your claims better? If you're a personal lines client, can we help you understand what losses you may take in that general vicinity? Because you're grabbing all this data from multiple APIs, then you're bringing that together and you're formatting that in the right way, and then you're able to give GPT or whatever can give you a
Right.
narrative around that, right? If that's our own models that we're running internally, or if you're hitting, APIs of stuff, just depends on kind of, but that's what we think is in a large case, we can really change the way that we understand our clients and communicate with them using AI. That's one bucket, which is client facing. Internally, we believe that we can let our users do better, cooler things, right? Can we get the high volume tasks off your desk so you can spend more time talking to that client and giving them risk advice and figuring that out? And then for leadership, can we accelerate our ability to report in a kind of see trends, see incidences, and make pivots quickly? And then can we build solution very, very rapidly? Hey, you have a problem today. Can we have something in your hands tomorrow to have a solve for that? And then will you use it? And then if you will, we'll iterate over that for you. And so those are the kind of the four buckets that we see.
Great, great. I think you also mentioned that Alchemy is growing rapidly and you have got many different locations. But how do you maintain consistency across or without losing that local agency strengths or something? Is
I
there
mean, I think it's
something
a
you
very
can?
challenging thing. I think any
Yeah.
acquiring agency struggles with that. I think Alchemy, because we keep the presence local, we do try to turn them over into the Alchemy brand. We feel like that is a move that needs to happen relatively quick after acquisition. Um, so there's never a perfect path, right? There's never a perfect path. If the agency is deeply embedded in the community and the community has their name and they feel like strategically it's going to, hurt their margins if we change that name, we'll be a little bit more variable in what that looks like. But it's very challenging. And I mean, what we see oftentimes what an agency calls a producer is not what I would call a producer, right? And most agencies, a lot of agencies that we acquire have a producer that sells and services. So, 50% of the time they're servicing their book of business and 50% of the time they're calling and doing sales like activities. In my world, that's not a producer. That's a servicing producer, and that's a generous title.
Mhm.
I like hyper defined roles that, hey, if you're a producer, your goal is to build net new relationships, and that's what you do. That's only what can only you do. And if you can only do that, let's get you doing that all the time and get the other stuff that others can do down, right? And then I like to compartmentalize tasks. I don't want an account manager having to do 30 things on a desk. I would much rather have them do 10 things and then we compartmentalize the other stuff. Like and a lot of times when agencies come in, that's a very divergent thought process for them because first of all, they're of a size where they didn't need to think about that scale.
Yeah. Yeah.
For us, everything is about scale though. And it's trying to figure out like when an agency comes in with us, the first thing that we do is we identify kind of the lower decile accounts is the low premium accounts that they
Mhm.
have. Like,
Yeah.
hey, you've got 500 accounts that are driving 2% of your revenue. Like these should probably go to a central service model where you have 60 accounts up here that are driving 72% of your revenue. Like, let's focus on that. Let's get this over to our central model where we can do a good job with this kind of stuff. And so, but I'll tell you, it's one of the more challenging components to a being a part of an acquisition firm because oftentimes what the seller hears is not exactly what it, maybe we miscommunicated as well, right? But their
Yeah.
expectation in coming in is different than the reality once the rubber hits the road,
Right.
because we got to make some changes. Like you said, we you have to make process changes and some changes to get that scale and to get those margins that some of the smaller agencies don't attain.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I think in many, many scenarios, I think some models might work very well in a local setting. And some scenarios, like you said, I think if you're using, if there are too many accounts, you're only getting very little revenue. I think maybe there is a way how you can consolidate and get into a central model. And then, and of course, with a
And then
company
you
like
wrap AI
Alchemy,
around that. I mean,
yeah,
that's our thought, right? We have
yeah.
a model called the Hive, which is in Utah. So agencies submit their low premium accounts to us,
Hmm.
and the average retention on the agency side is about 78% for those accounts because they're small and they aren't heavy touch, but they're not set up to have a model that scales around. So our hypothesis is you move those to Hive.
Hmm.
We have heavy technology that's customizing messaging and helping the account managers identify great round out opportunities and ways to protect that client more effectively. And we can do that more proactively because, again, we've pulled off the 22 tasks from an account manager and just left them with 5 or 10. Boom, right? Like, so being more strategic about that. But cultural change management is the hardest thing ever, right? And if that is you going from like AI to from NLP to AI or from a large organization to a small organization or small to large, the change management component is always the most challenging, I think, for all involved.
True, true. Tell me about it. I think change management is one of those very, very toughest things to handle. Let me now get into some of these practical AI use cases. If you could share some of these in the context of renewals or client service, what are some of those things where Alchemy can help better, or Alchemy is doing better compared to the rest of the
We focused a lot of
competition?
our AI today on client acquisition, right?
Mhm,
Like, how do
mhm,
we help our producers tool effectively to um, differentiate themselves at time of initial contact, right?
mhm,
So we have a very robust system called the producer portal, which is a it's really was built to do three things: find prospects for the producer,
mhm,
identify the contacts that they need to talk to inside of that company, and then provide them with talking points. Ultimately, every producer has to get that client to fire their other producer. If we can't do that, it doesn't matter, right? So how do you attack and erode trust that customer has with their current agent? And then how do we bolster trust with our technology in that? And so if that's customized messaging, or for us, our producers can create landing pages very quickly with a virtual avatar of themselves talking to that client instantly, where it's being fed like, hey, here's 64 data elements that we've collected from all these APIs.
mhm,
In Brad's voice, using Brad's face, you're going to communicate a 15-second spiel to this client. And so now they have this like video of themselves that is looks photo real. You can't tell the difference. I always tell my producers, you want to make sure you tell them that's your digital twin, right?
mhm,
Like,
mhm,
hey, I'm Bob's digital twin. We'd really love to work with you. This is where we see areas that we should synergize. If you'd love to talk to me, please click the buttons after this message, right? Boom. So then it comes out, you have the email or call button that's right there. And these are things that are generated kind of in real time as the producer is prospecting that take no work from them, right? And it was interesting because as I was building that utility out, I thought the frame around it is what's really cool because it's hyper customized to the client, and it tells where they live. It talks about why we should work together. We're not talking about insurance like, hey, this policy and that policy. It's you have a long-standing company that has these kind of factors. We're a long-standing company that has these kind of factors. We know this about you. We should work together. And if not, we'd love to be a second set of eyes when your other agency, when you have questions about stuff, right? And so, how do we customize that messaging from the time that producer touches that prospect the first time? If they click on one of our links, they're going to be like, damn, this is a lot different than anything I've seen before. Like, if they're doing this for me as a prospect, what will it look like as a client? My current agent sure doesn't do this for me. So, the erosion of trust is what we're trying to target there, right? With current agent. And the acceleration of trust, we know more about you than your agent does today, and you're just a prospect of ours. So, again, it's curious because email is a hard mechanism to sell through,
right,
right? I mean,
right.
and you've got to do it so much, and but this is a mechanism that we're starting to work through quite a bit, see if we're getting results and iterate. I mean, everything's about iteration, right? Like one of my teams came to me today and they were like, we're not where we want to be. I'm like, you're never going to be where you want to be. Every time you do something, you're going to be like, damn, you're thinking 4 steps ahead already because what you've done right now is already done,
Yeah.
and so I'm like, have grace with yourself. I said, I don't judge you until the ninth iteration anyways. Like the ninth iteration, by that point in time, we should be in a decent spot.
Yeah. Right. Beautiful. I think at this point, I would like to come to this. I term this as the extra AI question, the $1 million or the $1 billion question. That's what I keep saying in my podcast. What is that will separate agencies that get real value from AI from those that only add more technology complexity? Is that
It's adoption, bro. It's
yeah.
adoption. It's the number one thing. Like, I think about this so much
Mm.
because what's the moat, right? What is the moat and what determines value? And like what we're working on now is our adoption muscle, right? We've
Right.
built cool tools, and now it's like, okay, how do we get across user reticence for this? I mean, now you can do almost anything you want to, but if the users don't buy in, if they don't have trust, if they don't understand, then you're going to always have pushback, right? And so I feel like the differentiator will be, first of all, targeting real problems on humans' desks, right? Oftentimes, the solution that we come up with, I'm this brainiac guy, I have a great idea, it's going to solve the world. You get to the account manager's desk and they're like, yeah, that's about 12th on my list of stuff I don't like to do. Like, that's not even in my red zone. So the fact that you brought me that solution now creates, you're a hypocrite. You're not listening to me. You don't understand me. I'm sure as hell not going to use your stuff, right? So, how do we set our technologies, my team up specifically, to be embedded with that group, to understand and hear the problems? And a lot of it ain't AI. Like we use AI to build the code, but half the stuff is web scrapers. Ryan, we have to go to this website and that website and do this thing and do that thing. I'm like, if you can write that path down for me, I can automate it. And so that's what it's been a lot, right? Is they'll will go into a meeting. We try to sit in the meetings with the folks to hear the pain. It's not a technical meeting. This is just them talking operationally.
Yeah.
And then if we can understand that pain implicitly, then can you write that out? What you're doing there? I know you're going to 7 different websites and you're cut and pasting in this. Oh yeah, I can write that out for you. Well, we can solve for that, right? And once you solve for that, once you solve two or three of those problems and you iterate over it with them, then you'll never have a lack of solutions because they will just come to you with constant feedback. And then a year after that, what people think is, damn, they're innovative. And all you've done is solve problems as close to the desk as possible. And so my brain is, and this is what I tell my guys all the time, if I told you something and the person closest to the work told you something, that person closest to the work overrides what I say. I'm abstracted from the work, right?
Right.
They understand the work. Listen to them, and I think that's a critical component of it. It can't be a lot of ego. It's got to be in the weeds with the group and solving real problems. And a lot of times it's not sexy. It's like you said, it's there's some cool stuff out there. Like we've done a lot of AI work with our carrier stuff, and that's awesome because the old process was here's a SharePoint folder. Go in if you know what you're looking for. Go through the folder structure. If you know how that looks, get the PDF, analyze the PDF, find your answer. That was old state. Current state is go to our LLM. Ask a question. Who writes this? Here
Mhm.
you go. Here's the contact information. Here's why we verified that. And then here's the confidence score that Judge had on top of that answer, right? So you took a 5 minute journey that is full with interruptions
Yeah.
into a 12-second journey that instantly answers that question before they get distracted with the next thing, right? So, I mean, but I think it's being close to that work and really understanding the problem, not theoretical problems.
Beautiful. I think I love the way you have put it, like understanding the person close to the work and understanding the problem at hand so that you can realistically solve the problem at a much faster pace. And that is where obviously increases the adoption. And d-
Well,
is
get
it,
that user to, I mean, the
yeah,
second that user's like, yo, man, this is the best thing we ever feel is if a user's like, that thing you built, that helps me every day,
right,
right?
right,
There's nothing better. It could be the stupidest thing. You'd be like, that is terrible. There's nothing sexy or cool about that at all. But they love it. And the second that you build something that they want you to build, bruh, like it's so much better, right? Like
right, right.
they start having faith. They're heard. You solve their issue. They're telling their friends. Their friends are coming to you. Now you solve 5 issues. Now the whole damn floor wants to be a part of it. The culture's on fire. Like I've seen that occur in my shops, right? I
Mhm,
mean, because
mhm,
we try to stay close to the work. Like I tell
mhm.
my guys, I'm like, don't go out there when there's a problem. You go sit with them every day, talk about grandma, talk about their dog, you do whatever, earn trust. They will let you know the problem. You will solve it. You will rinse and repeat 5 times. You'll be best friends.
Great, great. I believe that is one of these differentiation factors that you guys are building at or putting together at ALKEME. Great. So before I know we are coming close to the end of the hour or end of the conversation. So before I let you go, what are those key takeaways that you would want the audience to understand or the business leaders to understand in this world of AI when you're trying to apply uh, to
I mean, I
agencies?
think the first thing is like, what does winning look like with AI today? Because I think that's a hard thing to answer, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think winning looks like iterating over it and trying to figure out how does it work into your workflow because what you're doing is actually learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think trying to understand in your mind like yes, every leader out there is like, oh, we need to use AI right now. We have to bring it in. And so much of it is more about like let's do wild stuff that seems unconventional with your with because you're going to learn like we learned so much on the video stuff. What we learned was who owns the digital avatar of the person. When that person leaves and goes to another company, could I then take that digital avatar, put it on LinkedIn and have them talk smack about their new company, right? Like if Sally and I have Sally's digital avatar and she's our trainer and Sally passes away, do I
Mm-hmm.
retain that forever? 200 years from now in alchemy land, is Sally our primary trainer? It starts to open up questions that you would never get to before if you don't start going down those paths. And that's winning with AI, I think. I don't know that any one product or any one thing today.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a main takeaway. The other main takeaway is you're in minute one of an infinite time frame. And so everybody that's coming to you that thinks they have this knocked, nobody has this knocked. I mean, we're all trying to understand it. And so many of these folks are trying to position themselves as the end all be all consultant to use. Personally, learn it yourselves, company. Like do it yourselves. This
Yeah,
is not a skill set that you want to give up to somebody else.
yeah.
Figure out how you move fast with an outside vendor while going on your own direction. Like, but you got to learn this yourself. If you give it up wholeheartedly to a vendor, you are going to be antiquated. It's not going to work. That there's a reason the SaaS companies are at threat right now, long
Mm-hmm.
term. Consumer development is the way of the future. I mean, it is going to be there, and our infrastructure is even being built around that. But those are my two. Is I think winning with AI today is experimenting. You get to places you didn't know. You're answering questions that other people haven't asked before, and then understanding how early in the game we are, and that nobody has this knock today. A lot of the stuff that's out there is hype cycle crap.
Great insights, Ryan. Great insights from you. I think I really love the conversation. Happy to have you on our podcast. Thank
Absolutely,
you
man.
for
Glad to
that.
be here, bud. It was good to meet you, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan, for joining us on XTraw AI and for sharing such a practical and grounded perspective on how AI is being applied inside the insurance agency world. What really stood out from this conversation is that AI is not just about adding another tool or another layer of technology. It is about removing manual bottlenecks, creating capacity for teams, improving decision making, and helping service organizations scale without losing the human relationships that make them successful. The insurance industry is built on trust, service, expertise, and relationships. And Ryan's insights remind us that the real power of AI comes when it is embedded into the actual flow of work, not as hype, not as a shortcut, but as a way to help people do better work faster, with more clarity and measurable business impact. We also talked about something every enterprise can relate to: data. Many organizations have data, reports, and dashboards. But the real challenge is turning that information into action. That is where AI, analytics, enablement, and operational discipline can come together to create real value. For our listeners, whether you are in insurance, financial services, enterprise operations, customer success, or any service-driven business, the message is clear. AI adoption should start with the business problem. Understand the workflow, understand the friction, understand where people are losing time, and then apply AI in a way that creates capacity, improves margins, and helps teams serve customers better. Thank you to everyone listening to XTraw AI. Please stay tuned for more conversations with leaders, builders, and practitioners who are bringing AI from experimentation into real-world business transformation. This is Raghu Banda, and until next time, let's keep extracting the raw AI conversations. Stay tuned, stay curious, and keep exploring what's next in AI. Happy predicting the future with XTraw AI.